if anybody has questions for a few minutes, to Helena. But these facts are shocking. It seems to me that we've got to spread some of this information around. That's partly what today is about, giving us the intellectual weapons we need. Lots of people here are environmental campaigners of one kind or another. This information is vital for what we're doing. So let's take any questions that there are to Helena. So Dave has one down here.
Sure. Yeah, I've never heard of one about the cotton having different colors before. It's just
sorry, the what?
About cotton having different colors.
Yes.
So they've actually eliminated it. I thought that they would have at least saved them. Seed banks and everything else. And the second one is that every time I read newspapers, it's always about the fact that we're going to. I've never heard about that. The world creates enough with 14 billion people. That's the first time I've actually heard that.
With the cotton, yes, they do save some seed in seed banks. But the thing about seed is it's a living thing. It lives in interaction with people and interaction with environments. So there's many different varieties. That's one reason why we have so many varieties of apple. And locally adapted here won't necessarily grow there. So I'm sure they do have some. But then, of course, they're not under the control of the local farmers anymore. They're in a frozen bag. Only if they were in a local community seed bank. I don't have enough detail on that. I went to a side event to try and find out some more information when I was in India, but they weren't talking about that in the event.
Okay, it's a question from Dave Dewhurst here.
Basically, well, thank you for a very sharp elucidation of all this. My query is we need to obviously as much local production as possible. Would you agree that there are nevertheless limits to how much we can do by local food production? Okay. And I guess also, should we not acknowledge the need for a more subtle, if you want to call it industrial technology for nutritious food production? And thirdly, how can we get rid of Monsanto?
How can we get rid of Monsanto? Are there limits to local food production? Is that what you...
Well, yeah, I'm saying local food production good, but not sufficient.
Well, I mean, I feel that I am too old and too unskilled to learn how to produce food myself. All I can do is try and buy it from the right people. And, I mean, Via Campesina, for example, obviously they want to produce food for their own region, their own country as much as possible. Yes, I don't think we can produce enough food in our backyards to feed ourselves, and not all of us can produce food. But the thing is that we have then to claim some ownership of the trading system, which we don't have at the moment. And we need to be able to work with the people who are producing the good food as opposed to the rubbish food, such as Monsanto.
Well, you said current industrial technology is a bit old-fashioned in some ways.
Well, the industrial fossil technology, yes. But I mean, they're also promising, just one second, they're promising synthetic biology and genetic engineering.
I was saying that,
I'm
just saying is that I was just reading about in the United States where certain areas, now certain states, they actually prosecute you if you start growing your own food. Because they're saying that it's illegal, even though supposedly it's not safe, that you can't give it to people if you haven't used pesticides while growing it, which is a bit...
Yeah, sanitary and phytosanitary.
My mind just sort of melts down when I hear that. But what about that not growing enough food? I have read of another group where they're actually encouraging people to get the rarer seeds and start growing it themselves. So that way, even though it would not just be in a seed bank, it would actually be in individual places, so it would actually create biodiversity or something like that. Not sure exactly what. But I wouldn't mind actually growing some of the rare breeds of seeds as possible.
Well, certainly, if you feel that you can, if you feel you can, then I think people should grow it. The Henry Doubleday Research Association, I can't remember what it's, Garden Organic, they give seeds to people to grow out. and my local apple producers growing 140 varieties of rare apples, as well as all the ones they produce, because they know how to grow these things and they've got the land to grow them on. Some people are growing them in their gardens, you know, just one rare pear tree or something like that. So yes, loads of places for doing that, you're right.
Okay, we'll take maybe 2 more questions. Quite a few speakers.
There was one thing, benign industrial. Well, again, we have to say what we want and why we want it. I mean, they're going to have a Royal Society discussion on food in the beginning of December, and I'm sure, looking at the names there, they're going to propose more of the same, like GM wheat and Northampton.
Right, question from Chris at the back, and the young lady with the white scarf, and then we'll move to the next.
Hi, thanks very much. Oh dear me, so sad, but very important, massively important. I think we have some sort of a national seed bank, and there are both of these things. Seems to me would be a fundamentally important thing to do to actually create a seed facility which has depth and breadth to it to confront the issues you talk about in respect of seed. Because essentially once lost you never get them back, those sorts of things, so it is fundamental. I don't know, obviously there are lots of great people out there trying to do their thing in the right way, but it's a pretty uphill battle, and you know that far better than I, it's massive. And so obviously it's a really question of what the real practicalities of that, the massive practicalities. And if you have any other ideas, I'd love to hear them, but it is really how one can really get up. This is a question of money, it's a question of I hate to use the word lobbying, but actually, you know, getting the ear of the people who matter in this life. And I'll always ever come back to this. To me, there is only one fundamental thing we have to do. We have to capture democratic control. Because unless we do that, the chances of actually really overcoming these problems are very poor. And that is Occupy, if it needs to concentrate its mind so hard upon that. Because that is right at the centre of everything. We know that there are massive problems. The past 2 weeks have been about all of them. And this is one huge piece of the action. So unless we do that, fundamentally we lose.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Do you want to come back on what Chris has said there at all? Or?
Well, just how to get rid of Monsanto. We do have to do the business of challenging the structures of corporations. And I was trying to do that during the Rio Plus 20 discussions for that stupid document they produced. But it's really, really hard. That's the core of the beast. And now they're going back and talking about all those paragraphs that they managed to get in. Corporations as people, I did a whole lot of work on that. Corporations have the right to be persons. But it's complicated and most people don't want to get involved in it because it's legal issues. That's something that I would still like to pick up, but I can't get anyone interested in it. And we do, yes, seed banks. We need, you know, in villages in India, they've got community seed banks. They know how to save seed. They save it in baskets or they cover it with neem paste or whatever. So we need to develop some of the same skills if we're going to keep our own seed at community level.
Right. Final question on this session here.
Yeah, I just wanted to make 2 points. First of all, could you get more, Jonathan said, perhaps get more democratic control of food sovereignty by making the public more aware perhaps the pesticides or herbicides, this industrial agriculture is not good for our health, because I then think we'd get a lot more people wanting to know what's going on, so they know that you could get Alzheimer's from this herbicide or this. That's one thing I wanted to mention. And another thing I wanted to mention, because I'm actually from a family of farmers back in India, so I've seen things like the first time my grandfather was a farmer in the village, and he left it, and so his skills have been lost. But I wanted to, so I've heard firsthand what it's actually like farming on the land, and it is hard work. Yes. But I wanted to find out, is it something that we can learn from industrial agriculture, the best of industrial agriculture, that we can now apply to encourage this sort of farming that is a better sort of farming, to kind of go back to it, but use the new skills to have a bit of a revival?
Well, I think we can apply it, but they talk about science and innovation. I think if we apply some of that science in an honest way to food sovereignty issues, to diversity and so forth, it's useful. There's always this dichotomy that if you want those things, if you want biodiversity, you're going backwards in time in some way. And in fact, if we can use some of those technologies very cautiously, so long as people have control over them, I reckon. The trouble is keeping control of stuff is really hard. I knew a guy who said that there was a time when industrial machinery was about the right size and fulfilled the right function, when ploughs didn't plough so deeply that they destroyed the whole soil structure, but they ploughed just deeply enough to turn over the weeds, and they were smaller. People are looking in their barns now, they're asking their fathers and their grandfathers for these old machines. Someone I know, a farmer who I know, called Jarosz, had bought an old harrow recently, and he's trying to put it back together again, because he reckons that that's a much better thing to use than the modern machinery. So there are all sorts of things like that that we can do. It's all subtle, difficult work that requires efforts from all of us. That's how it is.
Great, thank you very much. That's a wonderful presentation and really interesting information came out during the questions as well, Helena. So thank you very much, Helena.